Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Patrick Sirmeyer, and I want to thank those who are listening to our very first podcast here that we are naming the Career Blueprint Podcast. Play on words a little bit. If any of you are connected with me or know me socially through the professional working world, you know that I have been working in and owning and operating a recruiting agency nationwide specializing in the design build industry of the AEC marketplace for about 12 years now. And so this is a little bit delayed in the fact that we've had this on the to-do list for a while. It's been through conversations of leaders in both the architecture engineering world and owners and various organizations saying that they would love the opportunity to talk about really the challenge that we have set out to solve here at Lexus Plus, which is helping these employers find and retain some of the best talent on the market. If you're in the recruiting world or you know anything about it, you understand that that's a challenge in itself that's as strong as any other when it comes to whether you're completing your projects for your clients, but finding those people who are going to join your company and be assets long term. And so, for those, we're going to make this a short podcast at first, but my intention over the course of time is that we'll be interviewing different leaders, learning about their story, their backgrounds, what they have done to find success in their own business, maybe even some advice on what they do differently in their careers as they develop their companies. But we are going to keep a main vein focus, which is where we're looking at the talent shortage. And I've got with me today one of our senior associates and a 4-year veteran with our company, Mr. Gary Klein. And Gary is a personal friend, but also associate of mine working here at Lexus Plus. I wanted him to be our first guest today, mainly because he's gained a lot of credibility over the last 4 years in this industry. Gary is not only one of our senior account managers, but really a forward-facing individual with these employers and helping them solve their problem. And as many of you know, in the world of recruiting, it's not just taking an order from the employer and then helping find that fit. A lot of it's consulting and consulting on different topics of how we can get the best result for them. And so I really thought that interviewing Gary and having this conversation with him was going to open up some really good conversation, maybe even tough conversation. If you're out there thinking to yourself that you've used a recruiter or 2 or 3, I've even heard from some companies using 7, and you're not getting the right solution, there could be some reasons why. And so we hope we'll uncover some key indicators, but also talk about some of the things that's working for our clients and why they keep coming back to us on a regular basis. And so, Gary, I know I took a little bit of time to promote you there, but for those people who are not connected with you on LinkedIn or haven't met you personally or professionally, can you just tell us a little bit of like what life is like in the Klein family?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me as the first guest, so to speak. I moved down to originally a New Yorker, moved down to Florida a little over 8 years ago. I can really relate to hiring quality talent. I came from a business background myself, so I know how important it is to find and keep good talent. So I owned a couple businesses up in New York, sold them right before COVID, came down to Florida, got into the real estate business. Some of the work-life balance didn't work for my family. I have two young girls and a wife, so I was lucky enough to find an opportunity with Patrick. Believe it or not, I can't believe it's been 4 years now.
Goes fast.
But yeah, I've been working with Patrick for 4 years. I'm very active in my girls' athletic, so to speak, life. They are very sports oriented. I coach both of my girls, 10 and 12. So very active. And again, definitely looking forward to touching on some key points on what the recruiting world looks like with you, Patrick.
Yeah, I love that. Guys, Gary and I, it's funny because we have a daily kind of powwow meeting amongst our staff. Everyone in our company works remote, and we've had that actually pre-COVID as we've been we've had a fully remote business. But Gary and I feel like we're twinning on a regular basis because he coaches multiple youth sports. I do the same for my kids. So when we're doing a weekend recap or even a nightly recap, our days are Groundhog Day right now. We're working in the business, helping best we can in the recruitment world. And then we're coaching some sport over the weekend or the evening. And if you guys do get an opportunity, this is not a plug or promotion, but I do more as a passion project, operate another podcast called the Class Athlete, which is a local league here in Central Florida. And I've had Gary on as a guest in the past because if you know anything about the flag football world, and the fastest growing part of flag football is the female portion. He coaches one of his daughters who is a nationally ranked flag football team that enters tournaments all around the country. They're called the Lady Hurricanes. Is that right?
B&A Elite Hurricanes.
Elite Hurricanes. That's
We're
right.
actually, I don't even know if I had a chance to tell you, Patrick. I'm actually heading to Nashville tomorrow for a tournament.
Okay, awesome. Well,
So,
best of luck to you guys.
yeah, still getting it.
Well, I'm going to give a little bit of stats for the perspective of the the crowd listening, just to understand. And this is not a promotion of our business, but I'm just trying to at least lay the landscape. I looked at the data. We've been in business since 2018. Our focus has been the design build or AEC industry, usually employers from about 10 up to about 500. We've worked with bigger organizations than that, but that's our sweet spot would even be about 10 employees up to probably even 250. What we find is a lot of the employers who lean on us, they're the owner operators or founders who might have a couple of partners, but they're really still in the weeds of doing the work of engineering, architecture, design, whatever it might be, managing their own clients. And so they haven't yet grown enough to start to establish those different department heads, whether it be HR, talent acquisition, marketing, different aspects. And so they lean on us to help kind of bring that senior level talent, because there's always like a precipice point of like getting to a momentous stage in your company's growth before you start to add those departments into play. And so most of Gary's conversations on a daily basis are usually with founders and principals of companies. And, as you know, if you are one of those people, you wear a lot of hats, and, I wouldn't call it stressful, but you're trying to keep the main thing, which is your clientele and doing the work that you do for them. And then maybe 5 to 10% of your mental effort is going towards, say, the recruitment piece. And, when you're small, finding an A-level player is more important than other times. The bigger you get, maybe you can start to kind of add in some people that aren't going to make a huge impact to the bottom line, but every hire is important when you're small. And so, Gary probably manages, I'm guessing this number, but he probably manages 100 to 150 of our clients all across the country. And haven't looked at the data here, but I know that we're conducting more than 200 different searches, many of them similar type positions, whether it be senior project manager in architecture or, a civil project manager for engineering, or even MEP. Those are the common job titles that we're searching for. But the problem that we're seeing is that, whether you're in upstate New York or whether you're in Phoenix, Arizona, or Atlanta, Georgia, the same issue kind of applies, which is, there's a shortage of being able to attract the right talent and putting together a structure of an opportunity that gets someone to want to join that company. And so, Gary, I know that's a long lead in, but if you were going to start ranking in your mind the challenges that your clients are seeing top to bottom right now, like what would you rank as the number one challenge you're having? And then maybe we'll get into some solutions.
I think always having the quality talent that's available on the market. I think finding the passive candidates out there that are looking for a change is mostly the candidates we go after.
Yeah.
And competition. I mean, the competition out there is real. I think all the clients know that. It's kind of like race to the finish line. Who could get the good ones first. It is very competitive. Having the licensure certifications, that's another thing that these companies are looking for. Just that mid to senior level talent is really the sweet spot that these clients are looking for, but they're not the only ones. So, we're trying to help our clients, but we have a lot of competition outside that, that search. So
Sure.
It's really working as a true partnership to get that candidate interested for a conversation and really following that through to the finish line. Any misstep in the process could be the deal breaker. Timing is of essence with these good candidates and placements.
Well, so you bring up a really good point, and I've seen this. So like we talk about our process internally, right? So I'll state this. Anybody we're working with, an employer who's using our services would probably admit that like the hiring process or having a hiring process, they may not have one established, or they may not be practiced in that, because they're hiring 1 to 3 people a year, and we're hiring, 60 to 100 people a year. And so when you look at that and you go, okay, these are the pitfalls that I see some of these employers are doing, like things are doing wrong, and things that they could really easily improve upon that would help their own hiring or even help their relationship with us as a service to go, okay, let's make this a smoother transition. Because yeah, I wouldn't say it's 100% an employee market right now. It's not, there's been times where it's been a little bit stronger, where the candidates have some control. But because they have options, and because certain individuals based on their credentials are more desired than others, like you just said, we have to be very diligent in the steps that we take, and staying on a kind of a momentum train to make sure that things are aligning the way they are, because certain just small missteps make a big difference. And we say it quite often to our clients is, we start a search and we go, hey, upon our research, we found 150 potentially qualified people, but guess what, now we have to whittle that down to who's qualified based on our interview, who's interested in your opportunity, and who's available right now for that job. Well, when we do that, that 150 usually whittles down to like 2 people. And when I look at that and I go, okay, you only get about 2 chances at the really the best talent, a talent, and I like to say the phrase like the best talent in the market, not on the market. I know it's a long lead in, but like, what would be the common mistakes, or if you could list a few of them that you see the employers are making, and what would you guide them on how to do differently?
I think the first off is, we send a candidate over and it takes a week to get back to us for feedback. Um,
100%, yeah.
that candidate, like I said, is being approached, interviewing, with other firms out there that get back to whoever within 24 hours. So by the time someone gets back to us, we're already behind the 8 ball. They might be in second, third interview, possibly offer stage, and we're just getting in there at the wrong stage of the process. So timely feedback on a candidate, I think is probably the number one. And granted, I know all of our clients are very busy.
Hmm.
That's without question. But with this market, if that's not taken into consideration, it's going to be very hard to fill these tough positions because of the competition. The second thing, the main thing, sometimes we see, a client does get back to us pretty quick. First interview set up the next day. Then it takes 3, 4 days for feedback on that interview. And then again, we're behind the 8 ball then. So at the end of the day, I always say that these candidates want to feel wanted.
That's it.
They don't want to be like, oh, I just spent my time with this company for an hour, 2 hours, and I don't even have feedback on what they think of me.
Yep.
So if you have another opportunity that they're right on the ball. This is what we thought. We want to get you back in the office for a second interview. That's top of mind for these people. They
Yep.
are going to, stick with the companies that are showing interest. So that
Can I
goes
make
into
a
that.
can I make a
Yeah.
point on that topic,
Yep.
because I want to elaborate on that one. If you're an employer and you're about to interview someone, my advice, kind of piggybacking on what Gary said, is, you've got a candidate coming in for an interview. Today I'm recording this on a Thursday. I'd say they come in on a Friday. I would take at least 5 to 10 minutes to talk to your other shareholders, as in like who's involved in the hiring process. Make sure they're on the same page, make sure they have the resume of the candidate, make sure they understand why you're interviewing that candidate, and make your own game plan of like, hey, we want to impress this individual. I realize that as an employer, sometimes you're doing your daily work and you're looking at your watch and you're going, I got this guy coming for an interview in 10 minutes, and you literally stop work. You have about a 2 minute transition to use the bathroom. You go into a conference room and you start an interview. And if it were me and I'm kind of that busy and maybe a little bit stressed, I'm probably not going to put my best foot forward, not because I don't want to, but because it's just my brain is just thinking of, we're so busy with work. How can you, job candidate, immediately help us and be a plug and play individual? And although I get that because that's really the main point of why you guys are in business, my advice here would be you got to spend a few minutes to go, how can I show this individual that this is the best opportunity for them? And us as recruiters, and I can speak for Gary, when he submits a candidate, he's got a series of notes, their motivations, why they left their companies, why they're looking for a new job now, what promotions they got passed up for, what's personal situations going on in their life, where they can add value to a team of 20, 25 people. If you could just internalize that information a little bit and go, okay, I'm going to make my own story of where we can both add value to each other, right? Because I think you as an employer, you want to feel loved too. And
Hmm.
we, as the recruiters, we're making sure that that candidate is also well versed in your company, understanding what their position is going to be, understand how they should add value. It's a two-way street. But I do say this is that most times we see employers going in there, and we use internally, we use what's called red light, yellow light, green light to describe candidates, red being not interested, yellow being passive and there's some goals they want to accomplish, and green being like I'm active on the market and for various reasons. We present mostly yellow lights, but yellow lights require a lot of, I use the word courting to get them to kind of come along. And so what Gary's saying, and I appreciate you elaborating on that, is that we think as employers, you guys should do that process a little bit more. Was there any other points? I know I kind of cut you off there, but was there anything else you could think of that an employer could do to help make this process really strong, momentous for the candidate as well?
Yeah, no, I think you added some great points, but that feeling wanted, showing a path for these candidates, like where do you see these candidates in 3, 5, 10 years? A lot of these yellow light passive candidates, the reason they're open to conversation is they're missing the growth factor usually with where they are. So growth and outlook on where where you see them in their current firm paints a picture. I always think that that is a good thing to talk to these candidates in an interview. Like, this is your need now, but this is where we see you in 3, 5 years down the line. Because most of these mid to senior level candidates are not looking to hop around. They're just missing that growth opportunity that's just stagnant where they are.
Hmm, I agree with that. What would you say if, and I'll transition a little bit. So there's a lot of opportunities in which we're working with internal talent acquisition or HR. So when I describe that, I'm talking about a lot of hands in the pot. We as recruiters or consultants to the company, our first point of contact is going to be someone internal for doing recruiting within the company, and then they're going to take that information. They're going to speak directly with the shareholders, various principals with the company of like, okay, here's the situation. Would you give any advice or guidance to those internal recruiters that on how to work better with us or with the different recruiting agencies to get the best success what they want, which is that best candidate?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we're here for them. Use us as an asset. Ask questions. The more we're involved, typically the better outcome there is, because we know what the motivations. We spoke to this person the first time, so we kind of not only speak to them first time, but we're in touch with these candidates pretty much daily. Has anything changed? Just really getting a pulse just to make sure they're interested. So a lot of times these clients will speak to them once or twice throughout the interview process. We speak to them 5, 10 times, just getting them through the process, just really understanding, let's just talk this through. Is this what you're looking for? Like, what's important to you? The transparency part in any job is, I think, the most important part, which we try to outline that in detail in our initial submittal. Like, this is what this candidate's looking for. Um, so, we kind of give a couple of insights once the interview starts that if you can't provide some, I wouldn't say all, it might be a tough change for them. So I think the biggest thing is we're here as an asset. Just keep us posted, keep us in tune with what the feedback is, because sometimes there are different channels with different clients. But the more we're involved in the process, the more we can keep in touch with the candidate. I think the success ratio is just so much higher.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to bring up a very, I call it touchy topic right now in recruitment, and I'll tell you why. So we're recording 2025. Everyone references the pandemic as a window of time where we had a lot of change in our life and also specifically in the working world. That change created a lot of remote work. Okay. Many people went to remote work. In fact, now since our area of specialty happens to be really in the construction-based industry, that's hands-on, that's a lot of collaboration face-to-face. We talk to a lot of employers that are now saying, hey, we got to go back in the office full-time. We're not considering anyone who's hybrid or remote. Or they've got different situations. They go, we've got enough remote employees. Now we need leaders in the office. And that's I have to say that to me, that's the number one problem I'm seeing right now, which is causing A-level talent to not choose companies as they're going, I've already got a hybrid remote situation, or I've got a remote situation. Like, you could pay me more money, but like going back in the office full time just isn't for me. Now, look, I'm going to just rip the Band-Aid off and say, I recognize that that is a major problem. That actually has created a smaller window of talent than there even was. So let's just say the window was this big, and now because of you as an employer unwilling to do that, that window is even smaller. And we try to consult employers to say, okay, if not now, let's just work on a plan for hybrid remote work. And that means a lot of rapport, trust, working cadences. Like, do you have any advice for employers on not just how to communicate that and look for it, but like, what could they do internally in the way that they operate their business that would allow this scenario? Because once you allow some type of hybrid remote work, like, all of a sudden the talent pool just like opens up greatly. You know what I mean? But like, what first comes to mind, especially maybe any success stories or lack of that you've had recently with your own dealings in business?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually just spoke to a PE, um, 15 years at his current company. He's open to work, and he's looking more for that hybrid situation. He goes, I spend 4 hours a day in my car with traffic and
Yeah.
just commuting to the office. He goes, I think my time would be more valuable if I'm at a computer or whatever the case may be. So I think a lot of times it's not necessarily that the candidates don't want to go into the office. It's just the commute and traffic just takes so much time and effort to get to the offices that it's creating a you know this issue with going into an office 5 days a week. But you're right. We could be working on the same job for two different companies, and 99% of the time the person's going to pick the hybrid role. It
And
doesn't matter
they'll pick it for
anything
less
else.
money too. Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Doesn't matter for anything else, projects, growth. It is a huge talking point. Um, and you're right. That is one of the biggest things that we're seeing in initial conversations.
Well, I think, in the COVID window, whatever long you see it to be, 2020, 2021, even 2022, so call it 3-year window, it was a necessity for a period of time. Then it became a situation where people were trying it out. A lot of companies we'll talk to now say, hey, it didn't work for us. This is my encouragement. Again, call it the hot take if you want, which as a leader or one of the leaders and shareholders, I think you should talk internally about how can we make these changes to our business processes, our communication cadences, the things that we do that would allow us to do some of that remote work, or hybrid of, because I just think it's a progressive step to continue to take, where a lot of companies were just waiting for that window to end to go, great, now we're bringing them back to the office. I mean, it's happening in technology groups, but in construction, I get the idea that you've got to have leaders on site to be able to do that. And, my number one encouragement I always give employers is at least give a period of time to build trust and rapport with the new employee and then allow them to do it. I understand that when the new employee comes in and no one knows them, it's weird because you go, who's this new person that's coming in that's got a lot of responsibility that we never see? I don't think that's the right way to take it, but if you put say a 6 month or a year window on that and you have that trust, it becomes a much different story overall. Well, Gary, I do want to end this. I'm making this podcast short. It's our initial one. We're going to have a lot more conversations like this, and we'll come up with some topics that are really kind of hot and trending for our clients. But the last thing I really want to end on is just a couple success stories. And you don't have to be specific to the clients if you don't want to, but like just some of the clients that you've seen that are having the most amount of success. And I use it in this way. we judge what we call submittal to interview ratio or submittal to hire ratio. Okay, so that's the number of candidates we submit for consideration that get an interview or end up getting hired by the company. We track that data and we know who has the best hit rate and we know who has the worst hit rate. Can you give us any good success stories of companies that you feel like in doing so, they have a better rate of people joining their company, and why do you think that is?
Sure. I think that goes back to your initial question. What are the issues and challenges you see? Um, you know, the clients that work and consider as partners 100% have the best success. Um, Granted, there's, some clients that we work well at, placements don't, offers go out, they don't accept, which will happen. But to get from a first interview to an offer to a possible placement, it's really having that partnership, understanding, um, okay, timing is so important. Let's get back to it. Let's be available to hop on a call. Let's talk about this candidate. What's important to this candidate? What's the offer have to look like? I think being available, and having a conversation with us when there's interview debriefs or offer discussions is huge because we're speaking to this candidate again daily. And if we could be involved in that process, we could kind of guide and tell them, this is what we're hearing, this is what they're saying. If you get to this point, we're pretty confident, this person will sign. So again,
Yep.
I think it's really, being open to our process and being
Mm-hmm.
available to us from start to finish. I think that's really where the success comes in.
So actually, I'm glad you brought this up, and I'll kind of end with this piece. What we do, so I use the word cadence a lot, but like in our account management cadences of making sure that we're keeping that momentum, we find that when we start the search, our process is we do a discovery call to see if it's the right kind of employer that we can be successful with and they need our services. Once we engage with them contractually, we do a launch call. That's usually 30, 40 minutes of like all the shareholders are on there. We're talking about a game plan. It's kind of like a football team making its game plan for their game on Saturday or Sunday. Like what's it going to be like? What are we searching for? What are the non-negotiables? What's the interview process? What do you want to see when we submit the candidate? And so we're aligning all that information. That's again 30, 40 minutes. And then after that though, we're on the back end behind the curtains doing all the work, right? And a lot of times they don't see the hundreds and hundreds of people that we're reaching out to, turning over the rocks, having the conversations. But when we finally do present the candidate, that's like, to me, that's go time. It's like, okay, we've now it's like the ball's in play, and now we've got to figure out what are we doing with that ball and how are we moving it down the field. I keep using football references, but from an employer's perspective, we want to talk to you more often, and not 30 minutes to an hour each time, but we need small check-in calls, 10 minutes. Hey, with this individual, what questions do you have? When are you available this week to interview? By the way, this person has one other offer on the table, so I don't want to rush you, but like, how can we at least get this person through a 2 to 3 interview process? And what do you need to see to make a decision, right? And so we're just, as our side, we're aligning it all to make sure that there's enough going on to have a successful decision. And what I would encourage employers to do, if you guys are listening to this, is to like, I would engage with whoever recruiter you're using or whoever is responsible for hiring. Is you're going to need to engage with them in small little cadences multiple times throughout the week just to keep that momentum going. Even when it comes down to offer stage, we're very particular to make sure that like everyone's on the same page about the offer. Believe it or not, you kind of only get one chance at an offer. There's times to negotiate, but once negotiation happens, there's some breakdowns. We want to make sure there's alignment all the way around that. And so, if you're thinking you're too busy to speak to your recruiter or whoever that might be for those couple 10-minute calls per week, I would tell you that your chances of success are actually diminishing. And a lot of times in the end, the employer looks and they go, I used XYZ recruiter and they weren't very good. And I never want to, insult someone, but a lot of times when I inspect it and I kind of feel like what's going on, I'm like, your recruiter probably did a good job. You were probably just too busy to make this a priority. And, pain is one of the biggest motivators I've ever seen. When has the pain of going, I'm so overworked and stressed because I don't have this job filled, we find those employers fill the job quickly. when the employers are like, hey, I'd like to kind of have this person, not sure, maybe it has to be the perfect individual that, dropped from heaven, then, we find that those become too selective and the company never really moves forward. And I know I'm kind of, maybe I'm opinion based, but I mean, this is from 12 years of working in this industry, watching a lot of employers, helping hundreds of them. And I go, the same common problems happen from left to right. But Gary, we're going to end. Was there any other pieces you want to say? If not, I totally understand. I just didn't know if anything came to mind as we just finish up right now.
No, I think we definitely touched on the important points. What we're seeing in the industry, and what we see for success. So I appreciate those questions.
Yeah, I'm gonna put in the notes of the podcast again. If anyone wants to reach out to you, probably put your LinkedIn and your calendar link for anyone who'd like to just pick your brain. I'll say this to those listening: not necessarily you don't need to use our services. If you'd like some consultative advice, we're happy to give it. Don't feel as though you've got to engage us to still talk to us. We're very much here to give you any thoughts. We've got a lot of training material. We're consultants more than we are recruiters, and it's not just throwing mud on the wall. But if there's anything we can do to help any of you, please reach out. We're happy to do it. I'll put my LinkedIn there as well. But Gary, I appreciate you being my first guest. I hope this is going to be a successful podcast, and I'm sure I'll be chatting with you throughout the day.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it.